have spent time on the third floor of the United Nations headquarters in New York, where the press corps works. It is not a gentle place. The journalists there are seasoned professionals drawn from every region of the world. People who have reported wars, corruption scandals, and the fall of governments. They are interested in facts, not impressed by titles. They ask the question behind the question, and they do not move until they have an answer. When a permanent representative walks into that building to speak for 220 million people, the world watches. And so, on behalf of those 220 million people, I am watching too. I am watching with grief. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu appointed Senator Jimoh Ibrahim to New York as Nigeria's permanent representative to the UN. The congratulatory messages arrived immediately, as they always do in Nigeria, where appointment is confused with achievements and proximity to power as evidence of character. The Ooni of Ife called him the right man for the job. Former Senate President Ahmed Lawan called him one of the finest Nigerians he had worked with. Governor Dapo Abiodun said something about a distinguished career. I invite these men to examine the record. Ibrahim's business career is not one of creation or upliftment. It is of acquisition and collapse. That is why for years, his name has circulated in connections with financial disputes, assets issues, indebtedness, investigations, tax allegations, embezzlement, money laundering, and massive debt recovery proceedings. Consider Nikon Airways acquired, collapsed, approximately 300 workers left without wages from May 2007. The National Industrial Court awarded those workers 1.5 billion naira in 2013. Ibrahim appealed. The Court of Appeal dismissed the appeal in 2017. In 2024, a statement from former staff representatives confirmed that 808.7 million naira in salary arrears remained unpaid, along with 8.1 million naira in pension contributions that had been deducted from workers' salaries but never remitted. Nearly 2 decades later, that money, their money taken from their wages, has cruelly not reached them. Air Nigeria, taken over in 2010, collapsed in 2012. The National Assembly's own Joint Committee on Aviation stated on the record that the airline was granted because Ibrahim diverted a 35.5 billion naira government intervention loan guaranteed by UBA, funded by the Bank of Industry, into his family company, Nikon Investments Limited. His finance director, John Nnorum, a qualified accountant who resigned and was then prosecuted on Ibrahim's initiative, submitted detailed evidence to a Senate committee in 2016, including the acquisition of Energy Bank of Ghana with Afrexim loan funds registered not in Air Nigeria's name but in Ibrahim's personal name. He was later discharged and acquitted. The Senate 2014 resolution directing the CBN governor to recover the aviation funds from Ibrahim was never enforced. Nikon Insurance acquired, gutted. Former managers say Ibrahim fired 85% of staff, and the company went from national market dominance to less than 1% of its pre-privatization client base. In 2016, the Federal Inland Revenue Service (FIRS) sued its office for 182.7 million naira in unremitted tax. FIRS filed a 10th count criminal charge against Ibrahim personally, not his company, for 5 years of unpaid tax totaling 4.86 billion naira, and for producing and presenting forged tax clearance certificates to renew expatriate quota positions for 30 persons. That charge sits in the Federal High Court in Abuja. In November 2020, the Assets Management Corporation of Nigeria seized 12 named properties from Ibrahim over a 69.4 billion naira debt. AMCON said publicly that Ibrahim and his companies had been recalcitrant and unenthusiastic about repayment despite multiple exit opportunities. The court filing suit number FHL/L/CL/776/2016 was filed in 2016. It took 4 years to obtain the seizure order. How much of that 69.4 billion naira debt has been recovered? Remember the famous Newswatch magazine? Until a court stopped him, Ibrahim was the one who tried to rip it out of the soil and throw it away. In New York, a cell dragged Ibrahim to the U.S. District Court, claiming over $7.68 million for breach of aircraft lease agreement in which he had signed as personal guarantor. In 2012, EFCC agents interrogated him for hours. Sources at the time reported he had burnt documents before the interrogation and sustained visible injuries in the process. These are the credentials of the man being promoted by Aso Rock to represent Nigeria at the UN. Now consider the environment. The Nigerian Mission's ANIMEC website is a monument to institutional abandonment. Its most recent UNGA section archive stops at the 72nd section, which ended in 2018. There are no recent events or records and no evidence of a functioning communications operation. The building, just one block from the UN, is in effect a ghost. Into this ghost is Nigeria, trusting an operative who will abandon hundreds of unpaid workers, billions in court-ordered debts, criminal charges, a burnt archive of documents, and the wreckage of at least 3 institutions that Nigerians trusted. What message will he bring to the world that he represents Nigerians? The timing makes it worse. Ibrahim travels to the media capital of the world that already knows Bola Ahmed Tinubu by name. Sadly, that is not from reporting great success on the UN podium of conquering insecurity in Nigeria or in implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. Instead, it is from the federal courthouse in Chicago, where the drug scandal of 1993 is a matter of permanent public record, and in a country where Tinubu is begging to hide his records because they would do him irreparable harm. International journalists know about these goals, and when they want to ask about them, who will answer for Nigeria? This is not governance, it is the recirculation of embarrassment. It is what happens when a government has contempt for its own people, when it trusts that outrage will not last, that the congratulatory messages will drown out the record. Ibrahim's appointment is not a diplomatic strategy. It is a confession that in the grotesque estimation of this administration, Nigeria sits at the world's most important table is a reward to be bestowed, not a trust to be honored. I have written previously about the comatose state of the Nigerian mission to the UN. I write again now with the same outrage and something heavier than outrage. I write with grief. The grief of a country that keeps asking its citizens to lower their self-esteem. The grief of workers in Abuja waiting for wages since 2007. The grief of a continent that could be represented with distinction. In front of an international TV audience, presidential advisor Daniel Bwala infamously demonstrated the pain and humiliation of a compromised operative being ruthlessly disrupted. Several of the ambassadors that the Tinubu government is currently trying to shoe on into relevance are known to be of the same mode of hypocrisy and charlatanism. Nigerians are being systematically desensitized to shame by a government with a sense neither of smell nor vision. This is an insult in real time. It is irreparable harm to Nigeria.
People of the fountain.